Yeah, I don't know, man. You ever just feel like life is just catapulting towards some greater purpose?
Average fat cats with bloated ego. We are the only DJ crazy enough to tattoo Jackie Brown on his ass.
This is Michael Mann, and I ride with
Extended Clip.
Welcome to Extended Clip, episode 85. And we're going to talk to Caveh Zahedi today. And it's weird. I talked about like keeping a critical distance or whatever from filmmakers because I was too nervous to talk to them. And this is still one of those cases. I'm strangely nervous to talk to Caveh, but I don't know. He feels like a real person and not part of the Hollywood liberal elite. And so I feel like we can really, stand shoulder to shoulder with him, even if virtually or over a phone line, and, hash things out.
Yeah, as someone who's dealt with a lot of like celebrity encounters, a lot of like, just a lot of famous people I know, you just got to treat them like a person, just like they're like one of us. And so as long as, we're natural, we're cool, I'm sure he'll like us just because we're going to be down to earth.
What time did he say he was going to call?
6:15.
Okay, so we can fuck around for a few minutes.
Yeah.
I watched the show about the show last night, both seasons of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, just picking up the thread from I Am a Sex Addict, like, wow. It's incredible. I love it. I talked about some of the precision of the images in I Am a Sex Addict that frankly are not here in this one. And he even talks about that, like the direct to camera addresses. There's like different looks to them, not for any artistic reason, but because they had to get different camera people and shoot at different places. And, it has the aesthetic of a series much more than the aesthetic of a film. So like the still very measured compositions are traded in for loose, handheld, not very good looking stuff, but oh boy, is the like self-reflexivity and emotional torture turned up to 12 on this one.
No, yeah, I feel like with I'm a Sex Addict, there's a lot of that is part of it where it's like he's letting you on the inside of like, we couldn't afford this, so we're doing this.
Yeah.
Where it's like eventually, but like that kind of season one is pretty much all of that, like doing a lot of that, addressing a lot of that, and then by season two, it's just pretty much about like the relationships he's gotten out of it. He kind of ignores the concept to a certain extent just to follow the interesting thread and whatever this series experiment is.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the show about the show is a show that every episode is about the production of its previous episode. And then toward the end of season one, that conceit is somewhat abandoned in order to almost just go like reality show style, just confessionals cutting to recreations. And it's like, is this just a reality show at this point? But then the last episode really loops everything together in a really interesting way, using footage that expands from the wedding that was shown at the end of I Am a Sex Addict. And I don't know, man, that footage at the end of season 2 of the wedding is just heartbreaking.
Oh yeah.
And also it ending on just his friend saying to camera, this self-reflexivity is getting exhausting or something along those lines. It's like he's had that take in the chamber for like 20 years. Like, that was not an I Am a Sex Addict. Maybe it was in another film at some point that I missed, but just having that line in the chamber to end such a crazy product or such a crazy project. I'm stumbling over my words because I'm nervous.
No, I did like something of the opposite because I had already seen Show About the Show. I like watched part of the first episode, but last night I did one of his earlier docs that's I Don't Hate Las Vegas Anymore, which is about him taking his dad and I think like stepbrother to Las Vegas to do ecstasy. He's trying to convince them to do ecstasy so they can get like emotionally close to one another. And it's just like, it's interesting to see because what you're talking about, Caveh talking about self-reflexivity in Show About the Show, he's already like very keenly aware of what he's doing at this point, like talking about like I think one of the moments of like stress, and it's still to me it like is left up to a question whether or not the son and dad take ecstasy because it's presented like they refuse like at first. Obviously like that sounds like a pretty bad idea. But then they like leave the hotel room for a bit, come back, they say to Caveh they'll do it, and then they pretend to take it. But you don't know that it's them pretending until the end. So it like leaves it that really up in the air whether or not like Caveh's been able to like break through and have this emotional connection, or if they're just lying to please him. And in that point, he's just like talking about how he isn't even sure like what part of it is reality anymore.
Jesus.
No, yeah, I like that because that sounds kind of similar to the end of I Am a Sex Addict, to where he kind of cuts away before the marriage is officiated, and he kind of the way he ends things, like you're so invested in like, you know, his personal stories, and he'll cut away just like right at the end to where there'd be, you know, a nice bow on the story.
I think last week we kind of hesitated to lump him in with the whole Brooklyn filmmaker thing.
Yeah.
And then obviously show about the show is like why he would be considered part of that scene, obviously. The aforementioned Dustin is an actor in that one, playing like the producer character, and the guy from Girls, Alex Tarkovsky, is in it. And so it still feels like he's an outsider who is just continuing a project he's been on for, you know, however many years at that point, rather than being part of that scene, though. I wouldn't go as far as to say that scene formed around him, but he is just this outside force that's working within it and sometimes cherry picking people from it.
Yeah, no, that's what I like about the show is like pretty much all the people, you know, involved in the process, and how, you know, he's openly admitting that he's using like just free editors and stuff like that, and just working with, you know, his students, and kind of just using all of his, you know, clout just to, you know, get this show made.
I'm trying to think if there's ever been a professor that if they asked me to just like come through and help them edit something, that I would say yes to. I don't think I've ever had a teacher where I would want to do that.
Although if Caveh, if I
exactly. If I was in Caveh's class, maybe
that'd be great to have him for a class, and you look him up and see what he's up to.
Actually, you know what? Shout out David Desser. If anyone out there has Tokyo Story Criterion, he's on the commentary on there. He was a cool teacher.
Yeah,
I'd help him cut a commentary track, I guess. if that's what he does. I don't think he's a filmmaker.
Even though I've been to college, I consider myself an autodidact. You know, everything I've taught to myself. So.
You're a real Martin Eden.
Yeah. Martin Eden of my own generation.
Yeah, Caveh's new film that I think like just premiered at like maybe one or two festivals last year is like more collaboration like with a class of his. I think it's called How to Overthrow the U.S. Government (legally). And it's him like teaching a class under that name, and I think the students play like some sort of larger role in assembling the movie together. Yeah,
I was just saying, it's kind of like that. Have you seen Brian De Palma's Home Movies?
No, I haven't.
I mean, it's not exactly that concept, but it's kind of a similar thing where he's working with students, you know, to develop this thing. All right, I hope he calls soon. It's 6:14. Palms are sweaty.
Yeah. We got to talk about something that's not his work, just to be casual when he calls.
Indica or sativa?
Sativa. Oh, so that is another thing, though. So Caveh, I do love, like, we didn't talk about last week how being a stoner is, like, so influential on his work, kind of.
Yeah. We'll have to ask him what type of pack he's smoking.
Yeah.
All that type of all the cool stoner questions.
What if we did just do a weed interview with him? Just only talked about Kush.
How much you smoking these days?
Yeah.
Do you remember that professor I told you about who would always reference Woody Allen in his syllabus? Everything you wanted to know about sex, but were afraid to ask.
Yes.
Apparently, an update on him. Maybe we could ask Caveh about this. You know, his role as a professor, but. Some people, he was making too many inappropriate jokes during his biology class, like making jokes about like sex dolls and I don't know, other vulgar stuff of that nature. And it was presented in another class I was in, and the teacher kind of told the class how to proceed and
oh shit,
reprimanding him.
All right, well, here we go. Hello.
Hey, it's Caveh calling.
Oh, hey, Caveh. This is Eddie from Extended Clip.
Hey, Eddie.
How are you?
Good. Are we on yet, or are we pre-on?
We're pre-on, but we can just be on if you want. We don't really need to do anything formal to get started.
Whenever you want.
Okay, cool. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah. I'm Malcolm from Extended Clip, and I'm one of the other 3 people in this room.
Hey, Malcolm.
It's JT.
Hey, JT.
Caveh, we're so glad to have you on the pod. I kind of just like JT put me onto your work within the last week. We did an episode on I Am a Sex Addict, and then I ran through all of the show about the show last night when JT told me that you might be coming on. So it's very nice to meet you over the phone. Yeah, I just want to say thanks for your good movies.
Sure.
Also, what are you smoking on right now? You got anything going?
I don't.
Oh, okay. Well, we wish we could be getting stoned with you, Caveh, but unfortunately that's not the case. But after quarantine, after COVID dies down, you can come out. So you were actually from the San Fernando Valley, right? You grew up around here?
Yeah, I grew up in Granada Hills.
Oh, Granada. That's cool. That's where my dad grew up, like in the same era, like in the 60s and 70s.
Huh.
Yeah.
What's his name?
My dad's name is Ken. He went to where did he go? Kennedy. Did you go there?
No, but that was the zoned high school I was supposed to go to, so it was my neighborhood.
Oh, okay. Where'd you go?
I went to Granada because it was like a safer high school to go to.
That's where I went until I got kicked out, but I went there for a while. Yeah, that's a crazy school. Oh man, good times in the Valley. This is so fucking weird. We've never like interviewed anyone or anything like that. We just review films usually, so that's why this is so uncomfortable and weird. But I'm sure you've done. Oh, go ahead.
You're being more polite than I think you usually are.
Oh, am I? Okay.
Yeah.
I guess we'll be rude then. Malcolm, what the fuck did you do today? Do you want to ask Caveh anything?
Yeah, Caveh, I noticed in the show about the show, you kind of shouted out Glenn Kenny for his review, kind of, calling you disingenuous, which, it's kind of a out of left field personal attack. And, I feel like maybe your work, since it's so personal, it invites a lot of personal attacks. And how do you deal with those?
Well, they hurt. So, you process it. I got one today that I was kind of stewing about. But it makes you stronger. It makes you like less impervious it makes you more impervious to other people's, judgments and whatever, snide remarks. Mm-hmm. So it's spiritualizing, I think, to be attacked.
What was the one you got today?
It was actually an actress in the show who plays Ashley, the Ashley character when she quits.
Zia Anger?
Yeah.
I have so many questions. Okay, please go on. Sorry.
No, she just tweeted something hostile to me about me, and I was like, why? But it was just, it kind of hurt my feelings a little bit.
Did you see her movie, the first film that came out last year?
I saw the performance she did about making it.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's the movie.
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering because it's like also a very personal film. I wanted to ask you about that, but now that I know that she's mad at you or something like that, I don't want to ask that. That's weird, but I wanted to ask because it's like a similarly personal thing, I guess. But
yeah, and I liked it. I thought it was quite good. But yeah, it's very much in my wheelhouse, I think. Like, like I have a project I was doing about, all the films I tried to make that, didn't get made, for example. Like, I think, I'm interested in failure. I'm interested in, finding ways to sort of recycle projects that are not done. So I really liked what she was doing, and I related to it.
Yeah.
But she's very PC, and I think, there's some people who are just falling over themselves to like signal their virtue.
Absolutely.
And like I'm an easy person to like use to sort of like show other people how moral you are by bashing somebody else that doesn't do that.
I was just gonna say it's funny that you say that because I was surprised to read it was Lena Dunham on you, very positively of course, saying that like she framed herself getting into your work as a recovering moralist, and I found that very funny because yeah, the personal attacks generally do come from a place of like, I don't know, a moral high ground where like I get personal. I understand making stupid personal attacks at a director on Twitter because frankly, I do it too, but usually not for making personal films. Like that feels so much more, I keep saying it, but personal,
Yeah.
And I don't know, it all feels a little weird to me. But I guess that's the danger of making very personal work, is that it gets personal.
Yeah, I mean, what I hate about critics is they're so vicious,
Mm-hmm.
and like no one ever attacks them, and when anyone does, they run screaming.
Oh, trust
you
me,
know?
man. Glenn Kenny hit me with the block so quick. He hates me.
He attacks almost everybody in these very like kind of mean spirited and very like ad hominem ways. Like I know a lot of people he's done that too, and it's just like I just feel like he needs to have someone just do it to him and see what it's like.
If I may, I have some examples of very poor, inaccurate, and perplexing things that he said something that has really stuck with me over the years that like is representative of what's wrong with a lot of criticism right now. And it was and this is something I don't care about that much. Like, I don't care about the new Star Wars movies. I don't have any involvement with all that shit. I like the old ones, fine. But anyway, he said that anyone who doesn't like, was it called The Force Awakens? The Rian Johnson one? He said anyone who doesn't like that and talks about how they don't like it on Twitter is an alt-right troll. Like, literally, like you have to have an alt-right ideology because people were mad at one of the actresses. 10 years before that, he's in the very like slanderous documentary The People versus George Lucas, and he talks about how like the people that viciously attacked George Lucas for the prequels were in the right because the fans deserved better, and I feel like that's such just like going with the changing tides of what criticism was, the post like prequels era. That's like, people are blogging and there's like that kind of like, I don't know, the ain't it cool news kind of aesthetic of film criticism that is like, yeah, the fans should get what they deserve, And then now he's kind of doing the moral scolding kind of thing, which I don't know. Seeing you talk about him and the show about the show just kind of ignited that in my brain. So sorry.
No, he lives in my neighborhood, and I see him on the subway all the time, and I talk to him. I'm like, hey Glenn, how's it going? And I don't know if he acts like he doesn't know that I talked about him in the show. Maybe he doesn't, or maybe he does. And I saw him once. He was with a woman, and they were being very loving to each other, like very affectionate. And I was thinking, that guy looks familiar, first of all. And I was thinking, like, I'm impressed by how loving they're being. And I was thinking, this must be like a recent thing. Like, they must be like, young love kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of staring at him, both because of the affection and because I thought I looked familiar. And then he sort of sees me staring at him. He's sort of staring at me, and I think he recognizes me, but he can't place me. And then he just says, "Do I know you?" And I said, "Are you Glenn Kenny?" I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Are you? Who are you?" I said, "I'm Caveh Zahedi." He said, "Oh yeah." And then I said, how long have you guys been going out? And he said, "We've been together for like, I don't know." He said a long time, like 10 years or something, or maybe more, but many years. And I was like, wow, I'm really impressed. And I was impressed. Like, he's like, his wife loves him. So he's doing something right.
Yeah, he is doing something. I was gonna say I thought he was like Romeoing some girl, and that would have been like the ultimate flex as a critic. Some filmmaker recognizes you on the street when you're coming onto a girl. That's crazy.
No, he's got, I think he's got qualities too, but as a critic, I just think he's I don't know, it's like there's a meanness that critics have. I was a critic for a while too, and I was very mean. And my meanness was just out of like resentment and jealousy and frustration. And, I can't really blame them because I did it too. But, I feel like it comes from a place of like, resentment rather than a place of like, happiness.
Yeah. I mean, I think perhaps what he lacks in like critical rigor, he makes up for in the domestic sphere. He's a very good husband. And,
I mean, what I hate in criticism is just like, I think it's fine to say I didn't like this film, or it's not my cup of tea, or rubbed me the wrong way. Like, all that is honest and true. I just hate it when people are like, objectively, this is bad because I didn't like it. It's just like, really, like, it's such a simplistic notion of reality and of how the mind works.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why we mainly just review old movies that we know we're probably going to like and can just have interesting conversations about, rather than taking every new piece of shit as it is and saying, well, this one was good, but the other new blockbuster, that one's bad. And like, I just never want to fall into that game, really, which is why I could probably never work as a critic. But hey.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I feel like it's harder to talk more like explicitly about movies I have negative feelings towards, because it's like that's not I feel negatively about it because it's generally not promoting any sense of investigation or discussion that could take place.
And anytime we dislike a film, we talk about it for like 10 minutes. And then when we like one, we talk about it for like 45.
Yeah, and I think appreciating something is so much more, it's more difficult, really, than criticizing something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like it's like with people, like, you can see a person and they have flaws, and you can appreciate them anyway. And that's just like it's better for the world to see the good in people than to see the bad. And I think it's true with films too. It's like, to the extent that you can see what's admirable or interesting or unique about something, versus just like holding up against some measured yardstick of some preconceived notion that you have about what a thing should do, or what a person should be, or how a person should act. It's not nearly as interesting. It's just like trying to understand why they act the way they do, and like see what's maybe like interesting about that, or different than the way you do it, and what you can learn from that, or how you can enrich your vision of reality. And so much criticism just like reduces everything to some like preordained thing, and moralism does the same thing, just reduces everything to some like preordained notion of what's right and wrong, when really it's all so much more complicated.
No, yeah. And I think we learned something here today. I wasn't that big of a fan of Glenn Kenny coming into this, but now, I know he's like a good husband and he's in a loving relationship and stuff like that. Like, that's stuff to admire about a person. It reveals the complexities of him.
That's true. A lot of people who, run in our spheres, they like to, and, often rightfully make fun of those type of people, like the establishment critics, because frankly, they do lack skill and critical rigor. But when you think about it, I'm living at my mom's house. David Ehrlich's got a family, like he's got kids. I live at my mom's, so he's got me beat there.
Yeah. Wait, you had a question you wanted to ask about like influences, because Caveh, you haven't really said like, I think too explicitly in your work necessary, like other than I think in Sex Addict you directly like reference Godard, but you're curious about like other filmmakers that deal with like self-reflexivity, if you are
talk about self-reflexivity in films?
If there's any filmmakers in specific that have influenced like that aspect of your approach.
I really like Ed Pincus's Diaries film. Do you guys know that? Ed Pincus?
Oh, Ed
Diaries?
Pincus? No, I actually don't know that.
I think
it's pretty obscure, but he taught at Harvard, and he sort of like started the whole like personal documentary program there. Ross McElwee was a student of his, and a lot of people came out of that program. But he made a film where he just chronicled his life for like 20 years, and you see him like meet his wife, and you see him get married, you see him have kids, you see him get divorced. Like he just and like in a 3-hour movie, it's pretty long.
Yeah,
you just see like this huge span of life happen, and it's pretty powerful. So I think that was an influence. I mean, that's not really self-reflexive exactly, but
because I don't know. For me, when I think about self-reflexivity, the first one that comes to mind is in terms of like doing it productively would be Abbas Kiarostami and like the Coker trilogy, kind of how that kind of folds in upon itself, being about itself. Particularly with Show About the Show, how one installment is about the previous one. So that one definitely came to mind.
Yeah, I discovered Kiarostami after I started doing that kind of thing in my work. And it was like a revelation. It was just like, oh my God, this guy's doing the same thing I'm doing. And it was kind of felt like weird because, we're both Iranian.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too, because the two Iranian filmmakers that Americans know are Kiarostami and Panahi. And both of them do like a lot of self-reflexivity in making their work about, well, with Kiarostami about the process of the work, and with Panahi both about that and about his own journey as a filmmaker. Yeah,
and also Makhmalbaf has made a few films like that too. But those three guys, they're doing a very similar thing, and And the fact that I was doing it too, but without knowing their work, made me feel like, well, there must be some weird genetic predisposition here that's kind of weird, like a mystical thing.
Yeah.
But I love his work, and Close Up, for me is like the great instance of it. But of course the Coke trilogy is more like the show about the show.
Also, I was wondering with another kind of comparison thing. Sorry to just like talk about
please.
things that it reminded me of, but have you seen Brian De Palma's Home Movies?
I never did.
Oh,
Is it
that's
good?
like a film he made with his students at Sarah Lawrence.
Yeah, I remember reading about it. I was always curious about it.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. You should check it out. It's not great, but it has some good bits in it, definitely, and a couple of players that are in his other films. If you're a fan of De Palma, I'm not sure.
I am, some of them.
Oh, okay. We're big fans over here. We're big De Palma boys.
I like that De Palma documentary that those guys made. Noah Baumbach. It's pretty good.
Damn. I have this weird thing where I can't watch something like that until I've seen all of the Brian De Palma films, Yeah. But now I have, so I should just watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, you should. But I've been making films with my students as well, and I'd be really curious to see what he did because I thought about him when I made it, although I hadn't seen it, but just the idea of it. And also George Cukor's films that he made with his students.
I was curious how, being such a personal filmmaker, I know your most recent work about how to overthrow the U.S. government legally deals with you teaching a class. I mean, same thing like Show About the Show incorporates. But I'm curious how for someone who makes extremely personal work, collaborating with the students and getting their perspectives involved changes things for you.
Well, I mean, I really like, what James Joyce calls parallax, different perspectives, the way Ulysses is told from three different characters' points of views, the incidents are, told from other perspectives. I like that thing in literature and in life, it's nice. I think it's interesting how somebody has a different version of a story than someone else does. Mm-hmm. So, in the film I did, that one you're talking about, the students tell the story of the class. And it's really interesting to hear how they see it, and how they see it differently. And, one student will see it this way, and another will see it in a way that's completely, contradicts that or opposes that. And I just love that. I love, conflicting perspectives. And, in the Show About the Show, it's mostly my perspective, but I really welcome other perspectives. And in season 3, which I'm working on, there's a lot of other perspectives in it. So I think. And, I just made a film in London that is, 3 different people's perspectives on the same events. So I think maybe I'm moving more and more towards that, or at least that's interesting to me, right now.
Yeah, that is actually really interesting. Just I don't know. I haven't come upon too many filmmakers outside of the experimental realm who are so implanted in just your own POV than you. So you completely stepping outside of that realm will definitely be interesting. Just starting from the student's point of view, yeah. And I also wanted to say, how do you, right now at least, see yourself in terms of filmmaker versus teacher? Because these projects involving your students, obviously kind of blends that line between them. I don't know. It's kind of an open question, I guess.
Yeah, teaching is, I'm trying to document my life, and teaching is part of my life, so feels like it needs to be included in the documentation. And it's kind of a great opportunity to sort of integrate those two, energies or whatever, pursuits. So I like it. I like doing it. I keep getting in trouble with the university, which is kind of frustrating. There's so many, PC minefields increasingly that, anything you do that's kind of interesting or tough, someone's going to be upset about. So I don't know. It's been a little fraught, but so far so good. I feel like I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
No, yeah. I had a question about that because I'm a schoolboy myself. I'm still going to college, and I had a recent professor who got in trouble with the school for basically making too many Woody Allen references and stuff and things like that. And I was wondering, you're not afraid to put some un-PC stuff in your work, and it sounds like you're getting some. A little bit of backlash from the school you're at already. So how do the students sometimes react to, I don't know, things like that?
Well, it varies. Some students really appreciate the anti-authoritarian gesture of it,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of students are just, they're just like sheep. They just want,
Oh yeah.
everyone to think that they're good, and 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 my problem with moralism is like the disparity between the ideal that everyone is espousing and the actuality of who they really are and what they really do is just becoming greater and greater.
Yeah.
And the result is a kind of like deep dishonesty with self, a deep neurosis, and a deep depression, because you feel like you're a really bad person because you're not living up to these like ridiculous values that you're espousing that are just unattainable, really, and profoundly inhuman. And so I think there's like a lot of like almost like, I don't know what to call it, like mental illness, or like the
Some
beginnings
sort of
of like,
derangement syndrome.
yeah, like people can't keep it together, and there's a lot of damage being done to people's self-esteem and to their ability to be honest with each other and to feel safe, that is happening. And it's too bad because everyone means well, and all the PC people mean well, and the universities mean well, and the teachers mean well, but they're pushing for these agendas to try to compensate for a lot of problems in the world, but they do it in a way that I think is creating these other problems that are significant and need to be addressed. So it's a complicated problem.
Mm-hmm.
But I just feel like like the sex addict film you guys talked about, like for me the sex addiction really came out of a kind of inability to sort of integrate my need to feel like I was a feminist or something, or like a not sexist person, with the fact that I was a guy who had like sexual impulses, and some of those impulses seems to me to be maybe like not kosher in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just like everybody, but people don't talk about it, so you just feel like there's something wrong with you. And it seems to me like the more people can just be honest about their fantasies and their actions and the things that they're not proud of, the more people can feel like they're not so bad themselves. And then it just means that you can actually work through it with a certain amount of self-acceptance instead of having to pretend you're not doing it and deny it, which then leads to addiction, really.
Damn. Very well said. Also, yeah, so did you go to UCLA for grad school?
Yeah.
Nice. I'm at UCLA for grad school right now.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's fine. It's funny. I have just the two words written down on my paper right here, Matt Farley. And I think it's because you, Caveh, have now joined like this elite trio of filmmakers who have listened to our podcast. It's you, Whit Stillman, and Matt Farley. Do you know about Matt Farley?
I do know Whit Stillman, but I don't know Matt Farley.
Oh, okay. Damn. Matt Farley, he makes like no budget genre films in New England. There's like one really great one called Don't Let the River Beast Get You. But he also has an incredible, like, very Stardust Memories like film called Local Legends, like about him as a no-budget filmmaker. And it's very interesting. I would I mean, I'm sure you have plenty of shit to do and you're not just going to like watch movies that people tell you to, but I think Local Legends would be right up your alley, just to point it out.
Okay, thank you.
Whit Stillman did not take to us, but Malcolm has developed something of a strange relationship with him.
Yeah, me and Whit Stillman, I don't know. I feel like he
called us hoi polloi, which I didn't appreciate.
Yeah, I think he has a weird relationship with us where I think he pretends not to like us, but I think he's like, we're his insight to like youth film culture or something like that. And like, it's kind of like whenever he interacts with us, it's kind of like, keeping with the times. And that's kind of like endearing in a way to me. So
the hoi polloi means like the rabble, like the people?
Yeah. Like he called us like rabble rousing and like foul mouthed and apologized for not putting Adam Sandler in one of his movies, and it was pretty like messed up, honestly.
Well, I mean, his accusations aren't necessarily wrong. Like, we're foul-mouthed for sure.
We are foul-mouthed, but I wouldn't call us the hoi polloi. I don't know. Anyway, we don't need to talk about ourselves. When we have a filmmaker on the podcast. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I mean, Whit is a difficult person.
Oh, okay.
I'm not surprised that he calls you that.
Yeah.
Have you had experience with them?
I mean, a little. I mean, I met him. He's never been horrible to me, but I know people who know him, and and I mean, I like this about him actually. Like he's kind of like a snob in a way.
Absolutely.
And there's something old-fashioned about that. That's also charming and kind of there's something good about that too. So I can see why the good and the bad go together there. So he's a voice that I'm glad exists in the cinematic landscape. But interpersonally, I can understand why it could be
Yeah, no, I get
less than fun always.
Oh, what was it like working with Richard Linklater? This is a fluffy question, and I know you talked about it on your podcast. So what was that like being in Waking Life?
I mean, he asked me to be in it, and he sent me like a script, like 2-page script. And I just said, Rick, I can't say these lines. Like, I would never say these lines. And he said, well, that's okay. I just want you in the film. Like, what would you want to talk about along these lines? And I said, I don't know. I have a few ideas. And he said, well, just come to Austin. You can just tell me your ideas. We'll pick one, and then we'll just shoot it. And I flew to Austin, and then, we met. I told him these 4 different things I could talk about. And he said, oh, I like them all. Why don't you just do all of them? And I said, okay. And so the next day we just, went to this place. It took like 2 hours. And I just told these 4 different stories and he did this really smart thing, which I really was impressed by. He said, let's just do a practice run through just for the, for blocking and stuff. And so I told the stories, and then he said, great, we got it. And I was like, but are we going to shoot it now? He was like, no, I shot it already. I just told you, I said that so you wouldn't be like self-conscious.
The classic prank.
And then he used one of the stories at the end of the film, but he tells the story. It's like this dream that I had. I tell this dream about Philip K. Dick mostly. Mm-hmm. And then he just did that whole monologue thing himself at the end of it. It's like a pinball scene. He's playing pinball. And then, used 2 of the stories. And, he gave me the footage. And the footage is, it's okay. But, like, there's nothing like the animated version of it.
Of course, yeah.
It just elevates it so much.
I was going to say, it reminded me of that when you rotoscoped your children out of the last couple episodes of the show. The textures of that rotoscoping looked very much like Waking Life. It reminded me of that.
Yeah, I hate that rotoscope stuff in my show, though.
I get why you would hate that. I'm just saying it reminded me of it. I'm not saying it was great.
Yeah, it was the same approach, yeah.
Well, Caveh, is there anything else you guys want to ask Caveh before we let him go?
Yeah, I'm good.
No? All right. Well, Caveh, thank you for coming on Extended Clip. I think we're going to leave you with one question because it is kind of the thing that drove me wild about Whit Stillman in particular. How do you feel about Adam Sandler?
I thought he was pretty great in Punch Drunk Love, and I thought he was pretty great in Uncut Gems.
Okay. Great. All I'm going to say is that we highly recommend you watch Spanglish and Grown Ups 2, and we wish you a very fun evening. JT?
Oh, wait. Caveh, is there anything in particular you want to plug? I know your podcast just came out. Like anything else?
I was going to ask him to plug.
Okay.
I don't like plugging, but I think I've seen Spanglish.
Spanglish is great. We're big James L. Brooks fans on this podcast. We support him in any endeavor. So that's one of our pet films, I guess.
Which of you is the one who said all the nice things about Sex Addict?
About what?
About I Am a Sex Addict.
All 3 of us.
Yeah, we all loved it.
Yeah.
One person was like the main proponent.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think you talked a lot about the compositions on it.
I guess,
Eddie.
yeah.
Like,
I talked about
I brought
it visually.
it to the table.
Yeah, JT brought it up. So, yeah, no plugs then? Just the pod?
Yeah, this culture has enough plugging.
Yeah. Yeah, we're big fans of promotion on this podcast. We're not like those other, like socialist, anti-capitalist, but we're actually like kind of like madmen.
Yeah, socialists for the money.
Yeah, we're really into like advertising and stuff. So that's kind of our whole thing. But if you don't have anything to plug, it's fine. We'll just put some stuff in for you.
Okay.
Okay, great. Well, have a good night, Caveh. Thank you.
Take care. Nice meeting you.
Nice meeting you too. 818 forever. For the Valley boys out there. Well, fellas, how do you feel about that?
That was good.
Yeah.
Got a lot of good stuff out of that.
You can talk into the mic still. I'm still recording. Malcolm really like
I was
clocked out.
Yeah.
He clocked out, threw the headphones down.
It felt like an end. It felt like an end. So,
Yeah.
what was naturally happening. You hang up.
End of a nice shift.
That's the end.
That was so fucking weird. But whatever. I'll just
No,
of course not. He was great.
Yeah.
I think I would love if he's ever out in LA, I would love to meet Caveh.
Yeah.
No, yeah, same. I mean, he's like his reputation is very honest. He answers questions very honestly.
Yep. Well, that was a strange episode of Extended Clip, but we'll see you tomorrow for the main episode.
But then he also said that I was sinister and that my evident disingenuousness masks something even worse. And I'm like, disingenuousness? That means dishonest, right? Like I'm evidently dishonest? I don't know. I think I'm pretty honest. I think I'm probably a lot more honest than you are, Glenn Kenny.